Welcome back to It's Your Case, presented by VetCT.com. I'm Heather Chalmers, your radiologist on demand for this week. Today's example is an 11-year-old male intact French Bulldog. The dog presents because the owner has noted a bloated abdomen and reports that the dog did not defecate yesterday. Once you've reviewed the radiographs using your systematic approach, then you're ready to watch this video. Now, I will highlight some important findings in the caudal abdomen for this case. Last week, we looked at a female urogenital case, and we saw that in the normal, intact female, we don't expect to see the uterus. In the case of intact males, we often expect to see the prostate at the pelvic inlet. In this case, we have the urinary bladder here and the colon here, which is rather full. So although I detect a faint prostatic shadow in this region, it's not as well defined as it sometimes can be. Ultrasound probably still remains the most accurate way to assess the prostate, especially because it allows us to differentiate cystic changes from solid tissue changes. Moving on from that aspect, I think this case brings to light a rather tricky situation. As we're going through our systematic review of the radiographs, what to do when things are on the edge of the field of view or when they're sort of outside of our expectation of what we might normally think about. So either when we're doing our systematic review and we're tracking the large intestine or the colon all the way to the rectum, or maybe when you were looking at the musculoskeletal structures and you assessed the tail, which of course in this breed has this corkscrew appearance as we would expect, during one of those aspects of your systematic review, I would wonder if many of you noticed that there's this abnormal opacity similar to the opacity of feces up here around the tail base. Not only is it in an abnormal location, but you can see that the size of this sort of fecal ball is much larger than what you would think for the caudal rectum. So, just like everything with radiographs, my next thought when I find something that I'm unsure about or a finding that I think might be important is let's immediately go to the other view. And this is going to bring into play our question about what to do when something is on the edge of the field of view. So if I pick up our concept that maybe we were following the descending colon and rectum, you can see that the perineal area and the tail base is somewhat excluded from the field of view. However, we do see this mixed opacity, which has the appearance of feces, superimposed on the right obturator foramen. This would cause me to be concerned about a rightward abaxial deviation of the rectum, which could be due to a rectal diverticulum. Some other features that I would notice on these radiographs, and I'll maybe zoom out so we can see the cranial abdomen, would be, of course, we can see that the stomach is maybe mild to moderately gas distended and maintains a normal position. The spleen is also fairly prominent. And when we go to the other view to confirm these findings, we can see that indeed, although we have gastric distension on the edge of the field of view again, we can see that this is a left lateral view and the pylorus showing is gas filled. Therefore, there's no evidence, at least in the part of the pylorus that we can see, of pyloric foreign material. We've got beautiful rugal folds here on the edge of the stomach, supporting normal gastric mural features. I would also say that this view supports a mild diffuse splenomegaly. So I would conclude overall that I would suspect that we could have a perineal hernia with rectal diverticulum in this case, but this must be confirmed clinically. Radiographs kind of help to point us in that direction if it wasn't already picked up on your physical examination, but you would need to do a rectal examination and query a little bit more about the clinical signs, especially about the fact that the dog had not defecated yesterday. For the gastric distension, this is nonspecific, and as we said, there's no evidence of malpositioning or obstruction. This may be contributing to the owner's impression of a distended abdomen. Splenomegaly is mild in this case and is likely secondary to sedation, although you would have to correlate with what sedation was administered for the radiographs, if any. I've linked in the attached report a case where they talk about different sedative agents that can be used and their impact on splenic volume. So be sure to review the full report associated with this case. Thanks for listening, and remember, it's your case, so please post your questions on social media.